Hello, Robeson County, and welcome to Inside Athletics here at UNCP. I'm Jonathan Bim, the sports reporter for the Robisonian newspaper, and I'm your host here. And we got a full studio today. We've got Amber Hatton, the sports editor for the Laurinburg Exchange, and Dolphus Pearson, the sports director for WNCP. And we're all going to get to talk a little bit of high school football. The last couple of weeks, we opened with some UNCP, but it's all high school football from here on out. So I guess the big story, and it's the big story that's been all year for Scotland County and the area football, would be Zamir White.
Yes.
He came and made his first trip to Robeson County and really put on a show. 6 touchdown rushes, and then 243 yards on the ground, only in one half against Purnell Sweat in a blowout. So Amber, what did you see from him out there?
I saw him, he was very focused and determined on Friday. Every carry, he was running through people, just pounding the ball, getting to the end zone as quick as he can. I mean, who else scores 6 touchdowns and 240 yards in a half? Not the whole game. None of the starters played the second half. It was just those first 2 quarters.
Yeah, it was just crazy to see. And 11 rushes, so almost over half of his rushing attempts were touchdowns.
Yes.
And I mean, I saw the highlights. He went virtually untouched against Purnell Sweat.
Yes.
And he's showing why he's the top recruit in the country out of this senior class. And
Absolutely.
He's Athens bound next fall. And I think he could be really a guy that shows all the potential to be that starter come as a freshman.
And they've made the comparison to him and Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott in how he runs, because he runs hard, and once he gets into open space, he just has the speed, and once he gets in open space, nobody can touch him.
Yeah. Dolphus, have you got to see Zamir any yet? Or
I have not. But
treat.
Trust me, I'm one of his biggest fans, to say the least. It's so good to, see Scotland County have the number 1 running back in the nation, much deserved. And another stat I actually want to point out, that after his 6 touchdown performance, they actually gave him 100 total touchdowns in his career and over 6,000 yards. So, I mean, that's, just downright incredible. I mean, Georgia's known for, basically being the new running back the last few running backs they had with Marshall, Gurley, and now Sonny Mitchell and, Nick Chubb and things of that nature. And like you said, I could really see Zamir going into Athens next year and really beating that starting running back in the flats.
So, I mean,
absolutely.
And it's just a mixture of speed and power, really. I mean, it's like you see a guy at the high school level, he's a power guy or a speed guy. He's got it both. I mean, you can see in these plays right here against Purnell on Friday night in the blowout. I mean, it was just virtually untouched. He's just so much speed, and look how quick he can get out of the edge against. I mean, Purnell Sweat's defense is still coming along. I mean, they've not quite got the athletes that Scotland County does, but I mean, the burst of speed is what really separates him from most people at this level. And so, Amber, you've been with the Laurinburg Exchange for almost 2 years now.
Yes.
And you've seen Zamir White play. Was that one of the better performances you've seen him have?
It was. It was really. He was running with a purpose. Those who weren't at the game, Saheem McQueen, who they call Smiley, who's Scotland's other running back, who is impressive in his own right. Who's their, they call them the dynamic duo. Thunder and lightning is what they call themselves. But he actually got hurt. It was a shoulder injury. They're not 100% sure on Friday. They were taking him to the hospital for x-rays. It was either between a separated shoulder or a broken collarbone. They weren't really sure. They were still waiting, for the x-rays and the doctors. But I guess that there were some things that some of the Purnell Sweat kids may have said after Smiley got hurt that upset Zamir, and so he was running with a purpose and trying to make a point to some of the chippiness that was going on in the
Yeah, so Scotland now gets past Jack Britt and Purnell. They're 2-0 in conference, and it only gets tougher from here. I mean, the real teams in this conference are up ahead for them.
Are still to come, and what Coach Bailey has said is the team that they think they may struggle with the most is 71st, an underrated team in the new SAC 8, because they were in the Mid-South, and the only loss they had last year before playoffs was to Cape Fear, and as we all know, Cape Fear ended up in the state playoffs against Dudley. But they think that 71st this coming week, finally being back at Pate Stadium, is going to be one of their tougher games. Yeah,
and so Purnell going forward now, they have basically went through the gauntlet what Coach Richard Sherman, or Coach John Sherman, not Richard Sherman, likes to call it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, a little bit of a mix-up there, but they went through the gauntlet. They played Hoggard. They played Richmond. Now they played Scotland. They've got Pinecrest this week. They get Jack Britt, which is a winnable game for this team. Then they have 71st, and then they play Hoke and Lumberton to get really have a chance to get 6 and 5 to close on out. And Dolphus, it seems like Purnell has really been transformed this year. It's not the same Purnell as years past.
Definitely. They definitely are exuding some great athletes. Luke Oxendon leading the county, and passing yards. Chandler Brayboy, is an amazing receiver. Yeah. It's definitely good to see that, Purnell is really stepping up from, what they used to be. The fans are excited to see the improvements they made. And I know the coaching staff has definitely put a lot of effort into getting those guys ready. So, hats off to them. It's going to be a tough schedule, but I'm excited to see. I think they can really upset some of those teams coming down the road.
Yeah, and then the thing was, coming into this year, John Sherman actually told me, he said he thinks that even though there's running backs like Smiley McQueen and Zamir White in this conference, he thinks that Alderic Thompson, his running back, could have competed. He hasn't been at that level yet. He hasn't been at the level he has been in the past, but I'm really looking forward to see how he can move forward against some of these teams not taking on the heavyweights of the conference moving forward. And now, Dolphus, you took a road trip a little bit on Friday night. You went to Fairmont first. So how did that game look against Whiteville, even though you only saw a half? And it was probably the best half to see against Fairmont.
It definitely was the best half. They came out firing on all cylinders. I didn't know much about the the other receiver,
Javon Morris.
Javon Morris. I didn't know much about him going into it. I knew that they said they had another receiver that was like a weapon. But, including Jordan Waters, Javon Morris is an impressive kid. He had 2 early touchdowns. Excuse me, I'm having some complications with my glasses here. But he's a kid that he had 2 early touchdowns. Jordan Waters was really grabbing most of the double teams, things of that nature. Derek Arnett, I tweeted this. He has a kind of an interesting skill set. He's an undersized quarterback, only about 5'10", 5'11", 165 pounds. But, I was kind of intrigued by, how some of his passes on the run, things of that nature. I'm sorry. I was kind of intrigued by his passes on the run, some of the things of that nature. You could tell at times he kind of forces the ball to his athletes. He needs to let it come a little more fluent.
Yeah.
But he's definitely an athletic kid. He got out the pocket a lot. And as you said, the first half was pretty intriguing. I was actually a little disappointed that I had to leave as early as I did because I thought Fairmont was going to pull off the upset, but it kind of got bad as the second half went on,
Yeah, it ended up getting really lopsided, Whiteville 150-16. So you did see the 2 touchdowns from Javon Morris. Jordan Waters is really the big guy for them. And then you also went to Lumberton. So you went from Jordan Waters, junior receiving, which is probably one of the best receiving talents in the Robeson County, to go see one of the top quarterbacks and all-around athletes in Lumberton's Braylon Grice.
Definitely. And I covered the first time I saw Braylon Grice was the Hope County game. And, I'd always, heard about the buzz. Lumberton had this kid, a quarterback, athlete. And I'll be honest, I was blown away. The Hope County game, we all know he had, 5, 6 touchdowns, whatever it may be, in the blowout victory. But, he had a little tougher test with Jack Britt. And, he still answered the call. I can recall he had muffed a punt. And he had tried to scramble and make something happen, and it was a 3-and-out. And I saw him, kind of go to the coach, saying like, I got us. Next play he comes and he finds his receiver on kind of like a little circus catch, kind of like a tip pass, But he's very poised at the quarterback position. I don't believe he's going to play quarterback at the next level, Just being completely honest, 6 foot, 225, looks like a 4'6", 4'5" kid. I could really see him playing, in like an H-back type position. He definitely needs the ball in his hands. He's a playmaker. He's a strong kid. But, for what Lumberton needs him as right now as a quarterback, he's definitely the leader of that team. And I'm excited to see, how he progresses on throughout the season. I would love to see him throw the ball a little bit more, though. You kind of, you see the powers and the read options, things of that nature.
That's something you don't usually see from a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, it kind of gets, after a while, it's like, okay, we know who's getting the ball. Number one's getting the ball, but he's definitely a playmaker, and I definitely see him making some strides. And, again, I can see him playing in a Power 5 conference once he gets done.
Yeah, he does. He's already got offers after his freshman campaign to Appalachian State, UNC Charlotte. I'm sure there's still to come. You pointed out that there's been attention brought in from the ACC schools.
Yeah.
I know since his freshman year, Clemson's had an eye on him. So we'll see how that goes for Braylon. Lumberton, though, loses 30-24 to Jack Britt. That was probably one of the better chances Lumberton has to get a win the rest of the year. They have Purnell at the end of the year, but it doesn't get any tougher. And with that talent, it still boggles my mind a little bit. But Amber, you're going to get to see them play Scotland, and that will be Lumberton's senior night, right?
Yes, it will be Lumberton's senior night, and I've kept up with Lumberton and all the other. And Jack Britt was a very good team, even though Scotland crush. I mean, I hate to use the word, but crush them. Their quarterback, Brennan Shortridge, has really nice touch on the ball, and he has some receivers that can go up and get the ball. But, you know, when you start to play from behind, he forced some throws, and, you know, they maybe weren't quite what the throws he wanted to make, but he was having to make them because they were playing from behind against us. But I think that the Lumberton-Scotland game will be interesting just because, like you said, Braylon Grice, I've seen the stats on him. I haven't got to see him play yet this season, but from what I've seen, if he can find a way to will Lumberton to a victory, he will do everything he can to do that.
Definitely.
Certainly will. And I guess I'll talk about my game, even though it wasn't much of a contest. Y'all got to see some pretty good games. I'm actually jealous of Amber getting to see Zamir White's talented performance. But I go to cover St. Paul's at South Columbus. Both teams 3-0 in Three Rivers Conference play. It was supposed to be the game of the year up to that point, but nobody told South Columbus. South Columbus pulls off a 49-13 win. They was running clock right after the first drive, and it really was a step back for Noah Wheeler and the St. Paul's offense after having a good showing against Fairmont. And then with Marquise Coleman, Marquise Coleman was really their go-to guy them first 2 weeks. Had a leg injury that's really hampered him. Comes back against Fairmont, runs a 67-yard runoff, and then gets his hand stepped on, breaks his left hand. So he was a talent that probably could have been one of the top rushing talents in the county and even in the conference, but he's going to still be hampered with that. But St. Paul's has still got a ways to go here from coming on out. We'll just see how that game goes. South Columbus is a legit team. I mean, this is a team that was a fourth round team last year in the playoffs. They've run that wing tee that you're not used to seeing. So we'll see how that goes with them. Red Springs comes away with a 38-0 win. Lee McLean, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he's the real deal. I mean, the Robinson County's leading rusher with 827 yards.
He's only a sophomore.
Yeah.
He has 2 more years, which is crazy.
And that will be interesting to see. And they go up against South Robinson this week. South Robinson comes off their first win over a 2A team since 2013. And I think they have the best backfield of anybody I've seen with Darius Wright, Jamarius McLeod, and Darius Brown. Darius Wright comes off a 127-yard rushing game against West Bladen. So that game will be interesting. It'll be the 2 of the top running backs with Darius Wright and Lee McLean going up against each other this week. So we'll see. It'll be a good game. I'll be out there finally getting to see Red Springs play, and we'll see how that goes. And now, pretty much, I mean, this goes unsaid. Who would y'all say the player of the week of all the games that happened in Robinson County this week has to be?
Oh, man, that's such a tough decision.
I think
it's so hard. I think I'm going to have to go with good old Zamir White from Scotland. I think that's the best choice to go with.
I think so. I mean, you can't score 6 touchdowns and a half, 243 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I told the fans in my picks column last week, I said, you better get to Purnell Sweat early if you want to see Zamir White play. I was expecting him to play less than he actually did, but with Smiley McQueen going down,
getting hurt,
he got some more handoffs. So I think he's safe to say, even though we're focusing a little bit on Robinson County, I think he was in the county. So basically, he is the player of the week.
We were in Pembroke on Friday night.
So any Robinson County football fans that want to see him one last time, he comes to Lumberton the second to last week of the year, so that'll be interesting to see how the things go with there. And so we'll go to the power rankings now with my power rankings for Robinson County football. As you can see, made a little shakeup. Last week, St. Paul's was number 1, and Red Springs takes over that spot with a 38-0 win over East Columbus. Purnell Sweat hangs on at 2. I mean, for them to score what they did against Scotland was pretty impressive. I mean, nobody's going to be able to do that.
And the first part of the game was, pretty back and forth and competitive. I mean, Scotland went down and scored, and Purnell did answer with a touchdown, but then after that, after Smiley gets hurt, Zamir kind of puts the team on his back and made it not much of a game.
Yeah, and St. Paul's drops from 1 to 3. And then St. Paul's defeated South Robinson, so that's why they hang on there at 3 above South Robinson. South Robinson has a chance, if they can beat Red Springs, to make a big move. Fairmont drops with that ugly loss to Whiteville. They were number 1 2 weeks ago, and Lumberton stays on at 6.
Poor Lumberton.
Man, Lumberton, I'm cheering for you, Lumberton.
We'll see how it goes.
I hope we get something going,
but
man. I hope we get something.
For Amber and Dolphus, I'm Jonathan Bim. Thanks for the crew here at UNCP. This is Inside Athletics.